There's no love lost between Donald Trump and his former national security advisor, John Bolton. In fact, they trade barbs in public almost all the time. But Bolton does have a unique inside perspective on how Trump looks at the world. As the White House looks at increasing troops in Panama and Donald Trump repeatedly underlines his desire to claim Greenland, should Canada be concerned about the president's obsession with taking over this country? This is what he said last Thursday.
Canada only works as a state. As a state, it would be one of the great states anyway. This would be the most incredible country visually. If you look at a map, they drew an artificial line right through it between Canada and the U.S., just a straight artificial line. Somebody did it a long time ago, many, many decades ago, and makes no sense. It's so perfect as a great and cherished state. Now, there'll be a little disruption, but it won't be very long. But they need us. We really don't need them.
John Bolton joined us on Friday. Thank you so much for making time for us today, Ambassador. Nice to see you again.
Glad to be with you.
We continue to hear Donald Trump talking about Greenland, talking about the Panama Canal, talking about Canada as the 51st state, saying, I have lots of Canadian friends. I love Canadians, but they'd just be maybe our greatest state. And it's a conversation that you and I have had before, but it's an ongoing one that Canadians are really concerned about. The fact that Donald Trump is still talking about all of this stuff, that it's not backing off. Do you believe that he is serious about executing on that and using economic pressure to annex Canada, or is this continuing to be some sort of a play for him to lay the ground to destabilize things and try to get concessions?
Well, I think that gives him too much credit. I think what he's really trying to do is distract people from the fact that American stock markets have tanked in the wake of various trade proposals, various tariff increases that he's announced, rescinded, put back in. It's pretty clear that businesses in the United States see that this is going to be the beginning of a trade war that's going to leave everybody worse off. So I think he's trying to distract attention with his base. I think it's completely ridiculous to talk about the question anymore, especially with Justin Trudeau gone. He can't call him governor anymore. But I just stress to people in Canada, it also reflects Trump's ignorance. He talked when Mark Rutte, the Secretary General of NATO, was in about this obscure boundary along the 49th parallel that somebody drew years back. In fact, it started in 1818. It was negotiated between the U.S. and U.K. governments. It's a line that's made sense for a long time. He just has no knowledge of history that's worthwhile, and he likes to hear himself talk.
Do you think that having Mark Carney as Canada's new prime minister will change the dynamics at all? Mr. Carney's obviously been a tough approach to Mr. Trump. He's not Mr. Trudeau, but will that give him any advantage?
Well, it can't get much worse, it seems to me. But I think I just recommend you have to be careful with language, too. When you have a prime minister of Canada saying you can't count on the United States as an ally, and you have the White House press spokeswoman saying that, well, maybe Canada will be moved from being an ally to being a competitor, as if the talk alone doesn't cause damage. And to be clear, what Donald Trump has said about Canada was not endorsed in the 2024 election. I don't think it represents anything like a majority opinion among American citizens. And I think statesmen try to take the long perspective. And it means, in this case, 4 years of a lot of people on the Canadian side of the border, the American side of the border, gritting their teeth. But it's better to grit your teeth than to say things in public that could make it worse.
So you think it might be better for Mark Carney to take a softer approach than he's taking so far?
Well, he can take any approach he wants on substance, but he shouldn't sound like Donald Trump. It's not you're not going to improve things by trying to match Trump's rhetoric. Number one, no sane person can do it, and number two, it's not going to help get a better outcome.
You mentioned the markets, and of course that's been a huge concern. Donald Trump, notorious for watching the markets, very critical of other presidents, seems to be shrugging off the possibility of a recession or what the markets are doing now. Is that an act? Does he care? Is he going to listen and change tact if the markets continue to crash?
Well, I think he's very worried. I mean, Trump never admits he makes a mistake, never looks back. But of course, when markets are going up, it's entirely attributable to him. So he knows he's in a difficult position. And what he also knows, I'm sure, or his Treasury Secretary and others know, is that all across the country, corporate CEOs, key bankers, people who make large decisions on investments, capital commitments, new programs, large hirings, are moving to a pause because the environment is so uncertain, in part because of the tariffs and the uncertainty surrounding them, in part because of the fiscal questions in Washington. Will we have a continuing resolution? Will we get the reconciliation bill passed? That in light of that uncertain future, they're just not making big decisions. That will inevitably have a negative impact on the economy as you move those decisions out to the right. So the effects are going to be felt, I think, increasingly, and that won't do wonders for the market. That's for sure.
When it comes to Donald Trump's positions, I mean, he's all over the place. We know that. Things change day to day, minute to minute. Those who back him say that this is a deliberate strategy of sowing chaos in order to be able to take advantage and get concessions. Those who are critics of him say often, no, it's just a stream of consciousness and whatever he thinks. You worked very closely with him. What do you think's going on with the constantly changing every 5 minutes what his strategy is?
Well, I think that's the way his mind works. He doesn't have a philosophy. He doesn't do grand strategy. He doesn't understand policy the way anybody in Washington or Ottawa normally understands that word. I said in my book that if you took the thousands of decisions he made in his first term and just spread them out, they're like a big archipelago of dots. And you can try to connect them if you want to, but he can't even connect them. His supporters say, well, it's very sophisticated three-dimensional chess he's playing. And I'll just tell you, it is not. It is one-dimensional, regular chess played out one move at a time and no further ahead than that.
One of the biggest thoughts on the entire global community's mind right now is the ceasefire in Ukraine. We're now waiting to find out how the president's going to react to what Vladimir Putin has to say. Do you think that he is going to have more latitude and tolerance if Vladimir Putin pushes back on his conditions than he did with Zelensky? Is this all about getting his way, or is it about him favoring Putin?
Well, I think he does favor Putin because he considers Putin a friend. He certainly does not consider Zelensky a friend since the famous perfect phone call that resulted in Trump's first impeachment. I think what's playing out now is that Putin has received an enormous number of concessions from Trump, and he doesn't want to put those in jeopardy. So as you can see from Putin's public remarks, he accepts the idea of a 30-day ceasefire in principle, just wants to talk about some technical questions and some other questions. I think what he's trying to do is tee up a call between himself and Trump because he doesn't want to negotiate with lesser lights in the administration. He doesn't want his foreign minister negotiating. He thinks he knows how to manipulate Trump, and he wants a one-on-one conversation to see if he can do that. I think that call will come pretty soon, and then we'll know the answer. But Putin is an expert at manipulating Trump. Trump thinks they're friends. That's not what Putin thinks. He thinks he's an easy counterpart to manipulate.
Ambassador John Bolton, thank you so much for joining us with your insights.
Thanks for having me.